My name's Harriet. I hack your AI so the bad guys can't.
Welcome back. We're now at episode 9. Today we're talking about how you can upskill in AI security. So I'm sure if you've been watching along and you've watched all of them, which thank you, that warms the cockles of my heart, now you are absolutely convinced that AI security is not just very important but very fun, and you want to know how you can understand more. Well, this is actually a question that I get asked a lot when I'm out at conferences and out on my jobs. This is why I decided to start this channel and to do my Medium blog series, which you should also check out if you haven't seen them. But I started my journey in AI security a while back, and basically everything I learned about AI security was from my own sort of AI experience and cyber experience, and then reading a lot of papers on adversarial machine learning and like writing papers as part of my PhD. And I was never able to find that much content about AI security. In fact, when I started, it wasn't even called AI security. I just started calling it that, and then I noticed that other people were calling that, and then I was like, okay, it's a thing now. And so it was quite a journey, and I had a lot of fun learning through doing. I really want to make sure that other people who want to understand more about AI security are able to find resources. And obviously this channel, while the poor production value is not a plus, is one of them. I wanted to highlight some other ways that you can also learn about AI security, whether this is an interest or for some reason it's part of your job, or because maybe it's a career that you want to get into. Now, it's obviously a career that I work in, but it's a very emerging sort of a career. And it's the kind of career where, depending on the market that I'm in, so I spend a lot of time in the United States, I'm based in Australia, and then I travel just everywhere quite a bit. And every particular market that I'm in has a very interpretation of how important AI security is. For example, when I visit the United States, a lot of companies there are really keen to the AI security threat and are actually concerned about it and want to make sure that they are risk managing their business's AI systems. In Australia, a lot of the conversations I have around AI security are more educational and convincing people that it is something that they need to care about. So if you're looking for a career in AI security, it's definitely a growing field and it's about to explode, I guarantee you. So I'm going to recommend a few subject areas that you should become well versed in if you want to work or study or know more about AI security that are not necessarily the field of AI security themselves, but other really important fields that you need to know about. And then I'm going to list some resources under each of those, and then I'm going to list some sort of more pop culture resources and talk a little bit about careers. Okay, so the first thing is machine learning. So this is one area where I am going to go back to talking about machine learning instead of talking about artificial intelligence, because it is still true that AI is generally this sort of waffly term, and that if you really want to understand how artificial intelligence works, you have to know how machine learning works, because that is the backbone of most AI capabilities. Understanding machine learning, of course, is understanding the mathematics and the statistics that is inherent in machine learning. It's relatively easy to find like a notebook where you can create your own machine learning model, and that is really cool, and go for it. It's amazing to see that kind of work in action, and practicing is always really good, but it's essential that you actually understand the mathematics behind it, because that is really important to understanding why specific techniques work, why best practices are the way that they are, and therefore what kinds of vulnerabilities will be inherent in these systems, and therefore the potential exploits. It's really good to have a good understanding of the history of the field. So a lot of the AI techniques that we talk about, maybe this is, I don't know how people describe them, but the way I think about them are things like transformers, things that power large language models. I would call them quite modern approaches. You know, they come out in the last few years. Back when I was learning machine learning, it was more about things like logistic regression, decision trees, support vector machines. I guess I would call them sort of traditional approaches. People older than me might judge me for that, but I would call them somewhat traditional. And then there are the historic, is that an appropriate word for it? Historic techniques, which is the original sort of machine learning technique from the 1950s. And the reason that it's important to learn about that is to understand that actually the modern techniques that are so powerful are obviously pretty dramatically different to those original techniques, but they haven't, like, the underlying principles haven't actually changed that much. I guess I should add here that all of this assumes a basic knowledge of coding. You can understand the math and statistics behind machine learning algorithms without having to code, but in practice, coding them out really helps you understand sort of what the point of a machine learning model is, and helps you interact with them, especially if you're learning. However, if you aren't very experienced in coding, or you're finding it a bit daunting getting into coding, please just go for it. Like, I wouldn't even recommend you learn coding. I mean, honestly, all of the introductory coding and programming courses I've taken, they just don't make sense unless you have a specific goal in mind to use it for. I've done so many, like earlier on, I did so many different courses where they teach you how to write a for loop and what a boolean versus an integer is, and I guess all that stuff's kind of important, but if you're interested in this, you probably have a very good logical brain anyway, and if you learn by doing, some machine learning things and are just really conscious of filling in your knowledge gaps as you go, then I think that's almost it's certainly a more productive way of learning it. You just want to make sure you don't miss out on some of the fundamentals along the way. For that, coding and programming is such a massive field, and I've only used a couple of, 2 or 3 languages myself, and there are definitely gaps in my knowledge when it comes to newer applications, and so I will often go to ChatGPT and I will ask ChatGPT to explain something to me, and I think this is a really great way of making sure that I'm filling in my knowledge as I go, but it's also clear as I'm going why it is I want to understand how this specific coding thing works. Okay, I'm going to finally list some resources now. I do also want to say here, I know I'm waffling a lot, but I think knowing your own learning style is really important when it comes to upskilling in a particular area as well. For example, the way that I learn best is by being entertained and watching something that I'm actually going to remember and retain. To get a really broad, high-level understanding of the thing that I'm learning. I like knowing the beginning, the middle, and the end. So I like having a really big picture perspective of the entire field and then sort of narrowing down on specific areas from there. I find that traditional education often just sort of starts here and then takes you narrow, here and takes you narrow, whereas I think if you know all of this, then you understand. But everyone is different and you should find the style that works for you. So, machine learning content. First of all, we have Crash Course. Don't judge me for this one, but honestly, Crash Course, a lot of different sort of video series. They've got cartoons, they've got really cool narrators, they've got great examples. It's basically this, but just much better. And I highly recommend them. They go into enough technical detail that it's a good high-level understanding of a field so that you can then go deeper. It's also just really fun. Next is Practical Deep Learning by Fast AI. So this is a good way to go from 0 to 100 in some of the more modern artificial intelligence techniques, and it has good practical examples that you can work through as well. Next is Khan Academy. This is not so much machine learning. I think they do have an AI package, but the reason that I gravitate to Khan Academy is more for the math and statistics, and is basically the only way that I was able to get through high school and university math. The tutorials are really good, and there is something for everything, and it's in a really good level of detail, but it always starts assuming zero knowledge, or at least minimal knowledge. So I really highly recommend that when you're starting to get into some more of the math. Next is 3 Blue 1 Brown. This is a great YouTube channel for math as well, and it's just so beautifully done. It helps to really appreciate different mathematical concepts, especially because linear algebra is really the backbone of a lot of machine learning techniques. Next is Kaggle. So Kaggle is a platform that has lots of data sets that you can use for machine learning problems, but they also have a sort of course where you can work through different problems in a more structured and guided way to enable your own learning. The last one is a textbook. I don't really gravitate towards textbooks. They're a bit too high school, and I personally just don't find them very useful. However, this textbook, it's called Hands-on Machine Learning in Python and TensorFlow, something like that. I actually found it really good, and this is more of the classical machine learning techniques. It has some good work through examples. It's just a good sort of, you can read it from cover to cover basically, and it's not too painful. Do have a Google though, there are many more. I've heard really good things about programs by Harvard and Stanford that are online, as well as a lot of Coursera and edX courses. I can't personally vouch for them here because I haven't done them, but do have a Google and you'll find the right one for you. Now, the next thing you should learn about is adversarial machine learning. This is the academic field that lends to most of the offensive AI techniques. So once you understand machine learning, adversarial machine learning is all about how you can hack machine learning models. And this is really important to understand from a security perspective, because by understanding the different kinds of attacks that can be implemented against machine learning models, you have a better understanding of what the attack surface looks like, and therefore what kind of risks artificial intelligence systems could be subject to. There are over 100 different adversarial machine learning attacks, and it's also a really fun field. It's one that is still very academic. Like, there's a lot more resources on AML now, but some of them still very much, academic papers is the primary source of AML techniques, which is fine if you like reading a good academic paper, but it can be a little bit intimidating for some. So the resources that I'm listing here, I'm listing one academic paper, the OG, but the others are sort of reference materials. I would also add that understanding adversarial machine learning and all of the different attacks is important from an AI security perspective, because while there are so many attacks, many of them aren't necessarily realistic to be implemented in a productionized environment now. And while that might mean that it doesn't lend much to the AI security risk at the moment, it's important to understand, for your own benefit, why these attacks are less risky. What about them means that they are less likely to be employed now? And what about the environment needs to change for them to be more likely? Because risk is all about likelihood. Okay, so the first resource is this paper. It's the one that started it all back in 2013, and it's called Intriguing Properties of Neural Networks, and this is the paper that introduces the panda-gibbon example. You should go read it, at least just so that you can tell people that you've read the original paper. The next is the MITRE Atlas framework. So this has all the TTPs for adversarial machine learning. I wouldn't necessarily recommend reading through that unless you like lots of dense information without pictures. But they do also have a good sort of repository of threat information. So I've linked that bit here or down below. The next one is this sort of online reference book, Adversarial Robustness Theory and Practice. This is basically an overview of like the academic field, which is quite good. It takes you through a lot of the different examples, where they started, and through the life cycle of the attack surface. The next link is a list on GitHub by this guy Yan-Chen Lin, which is really good and really comprehensive. So, far more comprehensive than mine. And it's good that he can vouch for them. Next is the Adversarial Robustness Toolbook. So this is for when you start coding. It's a repository of all the different attack classes, basically. So you can import it, try them out yourself. This is definitely a bit more advanced, and it can be a bit buggy trying to get some of the code working sometimes, but persist, and it's a really good way of implementing them easily. However, I do always recommend that you do try a few from first principles yourself, because it really helps to understand how they work and why. For example, the fast gradient sign method is pretty easy to do yourself, and is in fact the example that we'll be working through in the next episode. The last resource is the Clever Hands repository, and this is again another coding repository, so for when you're trying out these attacks yourself. Now, the next topic you should learn about is cybersecurity/AI security, and I only lump them under the same umbrella because there are so few resources on AI security, at least in that terminology. So if you find AI security resources, great, this channel is one of them. And if you can't find them, look for cybersecurity. Understand the best practice in cybersecurity, some of the foundations, but basically you should have an understanding of what works well in securing cyber and information systems, and therefore what could be adapted into artificial intelligence systems. So here I'm recommending, again, Crash Course Computer Science. It's really fun. Some of the younger viewers might learn a little bit about, the history of computing and how computers work. I found that really interesting when I first watched it. Just watch it. The next one is Ethical Hacking on Udemy. I actually this cost me like maybe $10 to $20. I got it discounted for some reason back in the day, and it basically takes you through the entirety of a penetration testing sort of toolkit. You get to use Kali Linux, you get to use your own sort of little Wi-Fi pineapple thing if you want to. It was actually really good quality content, and a really good understanding of how hackers do it. You know, even if you do a little bit, I highly recommend it. The next is SANS. I can't remember what it stands for. Something Security Institute or something like that. They're known for really good quality cybersecurity courses and computer security courses. Very expensive though. So this is something where if you manage to win one, definitely do it. Or like if you work somewhere that sends you on these courses, take the opportunity while you can. Next is the podcast Darknet Diaries. I honestly mention this every episode, and I'm going to mention it again in the pop culture section, but I've learned a lot more from listening to podcasts than I have in any formal education. The kinds of content you can find and the real stories and real tactics that people use is just invaluable in understanding the so what in the real world, some of these problems. And then you can also go to the MITRE attack metrics, and this has all the TTPs in cybersecurity and a lot of good analysis on different threat actors and APTs, or advanced persistent threats. It might be a little dense for some of you, but it can be a really good launching point to then ask ChatGPT to explain it to you, or go and find research papers that go into the topics at the level that's appropriate for you. Now, what else? So obviously I have this channel, and this will keep producing content as well on AI security, so keep watching. You might be very glad to know that in 2024, a remastered Intro to AI Security series will be coming out, which is very exciting. I'm very excited to be working on that. I will continue producing new content as well, including sort of deeper dive series and things that are more about skills, like coding skills, getting into a PhD, public speaking, all that kind of stuff. Check out my blogs as well on Medium, also under Harriet Hacks. I'll continue putting written content out there too. And then if you know other good AI security resources, let me know. If you already work somewhere tech related, or you're studying at university, I really highly encourage you to take advantage of all the opportunities that you currently have in your current organisation. So one of the best parts of being affiliated with a university is not just the discounts, but being able to have access to different training programs, different skill building programs, different, grants and bursaries, and access to people, academics and professors who are subject matter experts, as well as other peers who are interested in the same things you are. So if you're at a university or affiliated with a university, go seek out all those opportunities. And if you're working, find all the opportunities that you're able to take advantage of at work, whether that's training, whether that's mentoring, whether that's connecting with different groups in your organisation through like interest groups or lunch and learns, or people across the organisation who might be doing something you're interested. Just reach out to them and be proactive. I've learned lots by just reaching out to random people in my organisations, or just sort of walking up to people and saying, hello, can you tell me what you're doing? Which is something I absolutely would not have felt comfortable with when I first started my career. But the more I've done it, the more I realise that it's far more awkward for them to be impolite and say no than it is for me to go and be nice to someone. So just do it, and you never know what'll come of it. Okay, now I'm going to list some pop culture resources. First of all, podcasts. Darknet Diaries, goes without saying, just listen. Lex Fridman started out as an AI podcast and now is very long form interviews, like 3+ hours, but still really good and often on sort of techie concepts too. I really like AI News by Samuel Albany. He puts out like weekly AI news updates, and this is such a godsend for time poor people who want to stay on top of what's going on in the AI world across sort of technical, news media, policy governance. It's really good. Next is Robert Miles on AI safety. He's basically what I aspire to be, but in AI security. He's the OG content creator on AI safety. Really good, really interesting. Go watch him. A few email newsletters I like. The first is Import AI by Jack Clark. If AI News by Samuel Albany is like half of my AI content at any one time, or like in my AI relevance of what I'm aware of in the media at any one time, then this is the other half. I would not be able to stay up to date without those two. And Import Out AI is particularly good, and it always has a cool science fiction story at the end. Also, another newsletter is Unsupervised Learning by Dable Meisler. I'm sorry, Daniel. It's a really good mixture of AI, security, and like other interesting stuff. Highly recommend. And the other is the Less Wrong newsletter. So Less Wrong is a blog site for AI safety, which often crosses over into AI security, and it really does have the cutting edge and a lot of different techniques. I know there's other blogs that would too, but I was asking my colleague / friend the other day why this was, and he's kind of saying, a lot of researchers don't really want to go to the trouble of putting out a paper, but they'll put out a blog instead. So I highly encourage you to stay on top of blogs. There's a lot of really cool research and thought development going on in there. Lastly, I just encourage you to get involved. If you know someone who's working on something interesting, reach out to them, even if you don't know them. So I've reached out to people who write these newsletters, and sometimes they reply, which is so nice, and sometimes they don't, but that's okay. A lot of the meetings that I had earlier on in my career journey were just by me reaching out to people and them being kind enough to reply. And if you're working on something that's interesting and you're pouring your passion, your hard work into it, then people notice and people appreciate that, and people want to connect with you as well. So take advantage of being able to connect with people, work on projects that you find interesting, go speak at events, just go be part of it. AI security is a really important field, and we need more people to be working in it. So whatever your interest, if AI security is for you, please work on it and help us out. Now, I have to end with a note on career journeys. If upskilling in AI security interests you because it's something that you want to work in, or is something that's a hobby, my personal philosophy on careers is always that if you pursue your passion and you work really hard at it and you have some kind of strategic thought around what pays and what doesn't, then you will find the path that is right for you. And if you think that AI security might be the right path for you, sometimes you just never know where these career opportunities come from, or opportunities to be involved in projects. And if you just start and create opportunities, that generally tends to yield more. So go and be audacious in your careers, pursue your dreams, pursue your passions, and then you don't need to wait for those opportunities to open up. You create them, and other people will see that and create them with you.
I'm interrupting this video by a pool in Malaysia. I'm currently out here on a job, so if the AI hacking part hasn't sold you, well look, it's pretty great being able to travel around the world, set your own hours, and work on something I think is genuinely really important. So maybe that will sell you on a career in AI security.
Okay, well that's the last vlog of this intro series, kind of, technically. The last episode is going to be a walkthrough of a coding demo where I show you how to implement the fast gradient sign method, an adversarial machine learning attack in a Google Colab notebook, so you can follow along. So this is the last content video. Maybe you're happy to hear that, maybe you're not. Regardless, I still need to end with an AI joke of the week. I'm really not feeling very inspired by these. Why did the computer start taking yoga classes? To improve its alignment in the data. I really want to do this section, but I feel like I'm being punished by the universe or something because all the jokes are so bad. That's okay. If you have joke recommendations, let me know. And yeah, thank you for being here. Thank you for being interested in AI security. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.